The Galactic Senate had gathered for an event unlike any other. Across the vast room, alien leaders, scholars, and experts from every corner of the galaxy filled the seats, all eyes on the ancient artifact at the center of the chamber. The Zereth Cube, a mysterious object that had puzzled civilizations for thousands of years, was finally being displayed for all to see. Legends told of its power, its secrets locked within its impossible design. For millennia, countless beings, creatures of unimaginable intelligence, had tried to crack the code, but no one had succeeded. Some believed it was a relic of a forgotten species, a test of intellect, while others thought it was simply too complex for any living being to ever comprehend. But the galaxy had never stopped trying. The Zereth Cube was more than just a puzzle. It was a key. What exactly it unlocked was anyone's guess, but the possibilities were endless. The Galactic Senate had invited the brightest minds from across the stars, hoping that this time the cube would reveal its secrets. But among them was an unlikely participant, Mira, a 12-year-old human child, the daughter of Earth's ambassador. Her presence was not meant to be anything more than a courtesy, a symbolic gesture from a young species that had only recently made its way into the wider galactic fold. Mira had always been a curious child, fascinated by puzzles and riddles, but no one expected her to have anything to contribute to the event. She wasn't a scholar. She wasn't a genius. She was just a child, just human. As the ceremony began, Mira wandered around the grand hall, her small feet echoing on the polished floor. She was more interested in the way the lights reflected off the walls than in the grand speeches that were being made. The adults were busy debating and discussing, not even noticing her slip away to stand before the Zereth Cube. It stood there, impossibly intricate, its surfaces shifting with strange patterns. To the trained eye, it was a masterpiece of design and complexity, but to Mira, it looked like a giant puzzle. She stared at it with wide eyes, her fingers itching to touch it, to see if it would react to her touch. Mira's curiosity knew no bounds. She reached out slowly, her fingertips brushing against the smooth surface of the cube. The moment her skin made contact, something happened. The cube hummed. A faint glow appeared along its edges, and the symbols that had been etched into its sides began to shift and change. Mira gasped. The room fell silent, the senators and experts pausing mid-sentence, their eyes turning toward the child. They had all seen the cube's glow before, but it had never reacted to anyone like this. It was as if the cube had recognized something in Mira, a presence, a curiosity, or perhaps even a certain kind of mind that others lacked. Mira didn't hesitate. She took a deep breath and began to turn the sides of the cube, her small hands working the puzzle as if it were nothing more than a toy. The crowd watched in stunned silence, unsure whether to stop her or let her continue. After all, they had all failed. How could a child, someone so inexperienced, possibly succeed where they had not? As the minutes passed, Mira's movements became more fluid. Her fingers danced across the cube's surface, twisting, sliding, and rotating it in ways no one had ever thought to try. Her approach was not methodical or analytical. It was intuitive, almost playful. It was as if she could feel the puzzle's hidden secrets, as if the cube was telling her what to do. It wasn't logic or study that guided her. It was something else. The adults, who had spent years analyzing the cube, were left in awe. Mira's simplicity was something they had overlooked. They had tried to solve the puzzle with their vast knowledge, their endless calculations, but Mira didn't need any of that. She only needed her natural curiosity, her sense of wonder, and her determination to find the answer. Time seemed to stretch on as Mira worked. The cube shifted in her hands, glowing brighter and brighter as she unlocked its hidden layers. The tension in the room grew thick with anticipation. Was she actually going to solve it? Was this child, with her untainted way of thinking, going to do what the most brilliant minds in the galaxy have failed to do? As Mira twisted the final piece into place, the cube made a soft click. The hum that had been steadily growing louder suddenly stopped, and the cube's surface began to open. Light poured from within, spilling across the room in dazzling patterns, and the air seemed to hum with an energy that had been dormant for millennia. The crowd gasped. What had just happened? Mira stepped back, her face lighting up with a grin as the cube revealed its true purpose. A holographic projection shot up from its center, displaying strange symbols and images. For the first time, the cube began to speak. The language was ancient, almost forgotten. But Mira understood. The hologram translated the words into the galactic common language. To those who solve the puzzle, the knowledge of the Eliari will be yours. The Eliari were an ancient species, long extinct, but their legacy had endured through the cube. The message was clear. Only those who held on to the essence of human curiosity, the willingness to experiment, to make mistakes, to wonder, could unlock the cube's power. The Eliari had designed the cube as a test, not for intelligence or logic, but for imagination, for the ability to think beyond established boundaries. And Mira, with her youthful mind, had done just that. She had approached the cube as no one else had, not burdened by preconceived notions or expectations, but simply with the joy of discovery. The Galactic Senate was stunned. The beings who had spent lifetimes studying the cube, who had seen themselves as the pinnacle of knowledge, were humbled. They had been searching for the wrong thing. The cube wasn't meant for the most intelligent or the most advanced species. It was meant for those who still saw the world with wonder, who still believed in the magic of the unknown. Mira's triumph was a turning point for the galaxy. She had unlocked more than just the cube's secrets. She had proven that there was something uniquely powerful about human thinking, a way of solving problems that the older, more advanced races had forgotten. For the first time, humanity was seen not as just another newcomer to the galactic scene, but as a species with something special to offer. The child, who had only meant to explore a puzzle for fun, had changed the galaxy forever. The Senate honored Mira, and Earth was invited to join the High Council of Galactic Knowledge. Mira, with her innocent curiosity and childlike wonder, had proven that the most powerful tool in the universe might not be the most advanced technology, but the ability to never stop asking questions. And the galaxy would never look at humanity the same way again. The Galactic Senate had always been a place for the brightest minds of the universe. When the Zereth Cube was brought out for display, all eyes turned to it. This strange artifact, a puzzle unsolved for millennia, had baffled the greatest minds of the galaxy. The cube's intricate design, with its shifting shapes and mysterious symbols, seemed to hold the secrets of an ancient civilization, one that had long disappeared. No species had ever unlocked its secrets, despite countless attempts. Scholars, mathematicians, and even engineers had poured years of work into deciphering it, only to come up empty. The Senate had given up hope of ever understanding the cube. It had become nothing more than a symbol of lost knowledge. But today, something unexpected happened. In the midst of all the experts gathered in the Senate hall, there stood a young girl, a human child named Mira. She was only 12 years old, the daughter of an ambassador, and no one thought she would be of any importance in this gathering. She had no credentials, no special knowledge. She was just a curious child, curious about the strange and wonderful world around her. Mira wasn't interested in the speeches or the grand plans discussed by the senators. She wasn't concerned with the weight of galactic politics. Instead, she found herself fascinated by the Zereth Cube. While others were deep in conversation, Mira slipped away unnoticed and approached the mysterious object. As she stood before it, her small hands reached out, fingers brushing against the surface of the cube. The moment her skin made contact, something unexpected happened. A faint hum filled the room, and the cube reacted. It glowed softly, and its symbols shifted, swirling into new patterns. Mira gasped in surprise, but she wasn't scared. She was curious, more curious than ever. She had no idea what she was doing, but somehow she felt like the cube was asking her to play. Mira's fingers moved instinctively, tracing the symbols, turning the sides of the cube. As she twisted and pressed, the cube began to change, almost as if it were alive. The room fell silent. The Senate members, who had been engrossed in their discussions, now turned their attention to the child and the cube. Some were skeptical. How could a child, someone with no training, solve something that had stumped the most brilliant minds of the galaxy? But Mira didn't stop. She didn't care what others thought. She was lost in the puzzle, lost in the excitement of discovery. She kept twisting and turning the cube, her hands moving quickly, almost instinctively. It wasn't the careful, calculated work of the scholars that they had come to expect. Instead, Mira's approach was spontaneous, full of wonder, a childlike joy that had nothing to do with advanced logic. She wasn't trying to solve it in the way the experts would. She was simply playing, enjoying the process, not worrying about the outcome. Mira's fingers worked faster now. With every twist, the cube responded. The symbols shifted, realigning themselves in ways that no one had ever seen before. The light within the cube grew brighter, more intense. It was as if the artifact itself was responding to her, recognizing something unique in the way she was thinking. The Senate members were now watching with wide eyes. No one had ever seen the cube react like this. Could it be possible? Could this child, this human child, actually solve the cube when no one else had? Mira's excitement grew as the cube continued to change, the patterns shifting in ways that seemed to make sense to her. It was as though the cube was alive, revealing its secrets to her, urging her to keep going. With one final twist, the cube clicked. A soft sound filled the room, and the light inside the cube burst outwards, illuminating the hall in dazzling patterns. The cube had opened. Mira stepped back, her eyes wide with wonder, as the cube's surface began to reveal its true purpose. The room fell silent, the experts now speechless, as a hologram appeared above the cube. Strange symbols and images filled the air, too complex for most of them to understand. But to Mira, it made perfect sense. The hologram began to speak, a language long forgotten, but Mira somehow understood. The translation appeared before her in Galactic Common. To the one who unlocks the cube, the knowledge of the Iliari will be revealed. The Iliari. The name echoed in Mira's mind. They were an ancient race, long gone from the galaxy, their civilization lost to time. The cube, it seemed, was their legacy, a test for those who still believed in the power of wonder, of exploration, of the childlike curiosity that drove them to learn and discover. Mira had solved the cube not because she was the smartest or the most educated, but because she still held on to that essential quality that many had forgotten. The ability to see the world with fresh eyes, to approach a problem with wonder and joy rather than the burden of knowledge. The hologram continued, showing Mira images of the Iliari civilization, an advanced race that had once shaped the galaxy but had left behind their knowledge, hidden within the cube, for someone with the right mindset to find. Mira's heart raced with excitement. She had done it. She had solved the puzzle, but more importantly, she had uncovered something much greater. The legacy of an entire civilization, the knowledge and wisdom of the Iliari, waiting to be unlocked. As the hologram faded, the Senate members began to stir. They had witnessed something extraordinary. They had watched as a child, a human child, had done what they, with all their years of knowledge and experience, had failed to do. Mira's triumph wasn't just about solving the cube. It was about understanding something fundamental, something that the greatest minds of the galaxy had overlooked. The cube was not about logic and reason. It was about imagination, about seeing the world as a place of endless possibilities. It was about approaching life with a sense of wonder, the kind that only a child could possess. The Galactic Senate had always thought of itself as the pinnacle of knowledge. Yet in that moment, it was clear that there was something more powerful than all the intelligence in the galaxy, the untainted, boundless curiosity of a human child. Mira had proven that sometimes the greatest discoveries come not from the most advanced minds, but from those who still believed in the magic of the unknown. The galaxy would never look at humanity the same way again. The mysterious object had been discovered in the deep reaches of space, floating silently among the remnants of an ancient battle. The Galactic Senate had immediately taken interest in it. The object was small, shaped like a simple cube, but its surface was covered with intricate symbols, symbols that none of the greatest minds in the galaxy could decipher. It had no known origin, and its purpose was unclear. Scholars, scientists, and linguists had spent years studying the cube, but no one had made any progress. It seemed like an unsolvable puzzle, one that would remain locked away forever. Among the experts gathered to examine the cube, there was one person who had no formal training in science or language, an unlikely candidate to crack the code. Her name was Leela, a young human engineer who had never been part of the high-ranking circles of the Senate. She had always been more comfortable with machines, tinkering with gadgets and finding practical solutions to everyday problems. Her simple but sharp approach to things had earned her respect in the engineering community, but she wasn't seen as someone who would crack an ancient code. Most thought she was just an observer, a curiosity, invited because of her skills with machines rather than her ability to solve complex puzzles. But Leela wasn't interested in just observing. As the cube sat on the table in front of the Senate, surrounded by the most brilliant minds, Leela's curiosity sparked. She had always been fascinated by puzzles, by things that seemed impossible. While the experts debated, Leela couldn't take her eyes off the cube. The patterns on it were complex, but there was something in them that called out to her. She could sense that the answer was within reach, but no one had yet seen it. She moved closer, running her fingers along the symbols, noticing how they seemed to pulse ever so slightly as if they were alive. The room was filled with murmurs of doubt. The cube had been studied for so long, and yet it remained silent, indifferent to all attempts at unlocking its secrets. But Leela felt a strange connection to it, something the others didn't seem to notice. Her fingers brushed against one of the symbols, and for a moment, she thought she saw a faint shimmer, just a glimmer. She paused, surprised. The other experts had not noticed it. Slowly, she began to trace the symbol again. It wasn't just a decoration, she realized. It was a key, a pattern within the pattern. She could feel it, like a hidden rhythm, guiding her hands along the cube's surface. As her fingers moved, the cube shifted slightly, and the symbols rearranged themselves. The room grew quiet. Leela felt a thrill of excitement run through her. She wasn't sure what was happening, but she wasn't about to stop now. The cube responded to her touch, just as if it were alive, waiting for the right moment. She pushed a symbol inward, and the cube clicked. A low hum filled the air, and the cube's surface shimmered once more. The symbols began to align in a new pattern, more clearly now, and this time, it wasn't just a random shift. It was intentional. Leela continued working, completely focused. She had no time for the skepticism around her. The room's attention was now entirely on her. The tension in the air was palpable. Could a simple engineer, a human, actually crack a code that had confounded the galaxy's greatest minds? Leila's hands moved faster now, her mind racing through possibilities. With each twist, turn, and press, she felt the cube's response becoming stronger. It wasn't just a puzzle, it was a message. The symbols weren't just random. They told a story, a language lost to time. As the symbols began to rearrange in a clear sequence, Leela realized that she wasn't simply decoding a message. She was reading the history of an ancient civilization, one that had long since disappeared. The cube was not just an object. It was a time capsule, a testament to the lost knowledge of a people who had vanished from the galaxy. The room had gone silent. All eyes were on Leela as the cube's surface began to glow, casting eerie shadows on the walls. She pressed one final symbol. The cube clicked again, and the symbols faded away. In their place, a holographic projection appeared in the air. It showed an ancient city, tall spires reaching into a sky filled with strange, beautiful colors. The projection flickered and shifted, revealing the civilization's history. The people who had created the cube were known as the Inler. Their empire had once stretched across the stars, their technology unmatched. But they had disappeared without a trace, leaving behind only this message in the cube. As the hologram continued, it began to reveal the true nature of the message. It wasn't just a history lesson, it was a warning. The Enler had known something terrible was coming, something that threatened the very fabric of the galaxy. The cube they had left behind was not just a puzzle. It was a key to unlocking the knowledge needed to stop the coming disaster. As Leela watched the images unfold, she felt a deep sense of awe and dread. The warning was clear. The galaxy was in danger, and the cube contained the information needed to prevent the catastrophe. But the cube had only revealed a small part of the message. The full truth was still hidden within it. Lila turned back to the cube, which was now calm, its surface still glowing faintly. She knew that she had only just begun to uncover its secrets. The Senate members were now speaking in hushed tones, some of them looking at Leela with newfound respect, while others were too stunned to speak. They had never expected a human, especially someone as young and untrained as Leela, to crack the code. But Leela was undeterred. She had opened the first layer, and she knew there was more to find. She had done what no one else had thought possible. In a quiet voice, she said, "There's more. I can feel it." The cube isn't done yet. The experts in the room were speechless. They had never seen anything like this. Leela had cracked the code, not just with logic or education, but with something far more important: the ability to see beyond the surface, to trust in her instincts, and her ability to find patterns where others saw none. As Leela looked at the cube, she knew the path ahead would be difficult, but the first step had been taken. The cube had opened, and with it, the promise of a new chapter for the galaxy, a chapter that would change everything. The puzzle was far from over, but for the first time, the galaxy had a chance to solve it, and it was all thanks to a human engineer who saw what no one else could. For centuries, the universe had known peace, at least outwardly. The mighty galactic empires had long since learned the art of coexistence, and the wars of old seemed a thing of the past. Yet beneath the surface of this calm, there had always been whispers of a forgotten truth, a hidden secret that could shake the very foundations of everything known. This truth had been concealed for millennia, locked away in the most secure vaults, guarded by those who feared what it could bring to light. But now it was about to be revealed. The discovery had come in the form of an ancient artifact, a relic from a time when the universe had been divided by bloodshed and chaos. The artifact, a small, smooth stone tablet, had been found in a ruined temple on a forgotten world, one that had long since been abandoned. The planet, once a thriving center of civilization, was now a desolate wasteland, its people lost to history. The stone tablet, however, remained intact, and with it, the promise of untold secrets. It was the historian Dr. Calivorn, a woman known for her unyielding determination, who first laid her hands on the tablet. She had spent her entire life studying ancient texts, deciphering long-lost languages, and piecing together the fragments of forgotten civilizations. To her, this tablet was the culmination of all her efforts. The markings on it were unlike anything she had seen before, strange symbols that seemed to shift and change when viewed from different angles. It was no ordinary artifact. It was a key to something far greater, something that could alter the course of the entire galaxy. As Dr. Vorn sat in her study, alone with the tablet, she began to examine it more closely. She had been studying the markings for weeks, trying to make sense of the seemingly random patterns. But the symbols defied all known linguistic rules, and no matter how much she analyzed them, they remained an enigma. It was as though the tablet itself was actively resisting any attempt to decipher it. Frustrated but determined, Dr. Vorn turned to her old mentor, Professor Larkin, for help. He was one of the few remaining experts on ancient technologies, and he had once told her that there were truths hidden in the past that were too dangerous to uncover. He had always spoken in riddles, but there was something in his tone that suggested he knew more than he let on. When Dr. Vorn showed him the tablet, his face went pale. He stared at it for a long time without speaking, his eyes darting across the shifting symbols. It was only then that Dr. Vorn realized that this was no ordinary puzzle. The professor's reaction confirmed what she had feared. The truth hidden within the tablet was something he had been trying to forget, something that even he had hoped would remain buried. "You shouldn't have found this, Calla," Professor Larkin said, his voice barely a whisper. "This is not just a relic. It is a warning." "A warning?" Dr. Vorn was taken aback. "A warning about what?" Professor Larkin hesitated, clearly struggling with the weight of the knowledge he carried. "The tablet is a map, Calla," he finally said. "A map to the place where it all began, the place where the first civilization, the first true empire, was born. But it's more than that. This is the key to a weapon so powerful, so destructive, that its creators sealed it away, hoping that no one would ever find it. But now you have found it." Dr. Vorn felt a chill run down her spine. She had been searching for knowledge, for answers to questions no one else dared to ask. But this was not the kind of truth she had been seeking. The weapon that Professor Larkin spoke of was something far darker, something that could undo everything that had been built in the centuries of peace. "But why didn't you tell anyone?" Dr. Vorn asked, her voice shaking. "Why didn't you stop me?" Professor Larkin lowered his head. "Because I feared this day would come. I tried to keep it hidden, to make sure no one else would uncover the truth. But the galaxy is always changing, and there are those who will stop at nothing to find this weapon. It's too dangerous to let anyone have it. If the wrong people get their hands on it." Dr. Vorn's mind raced. She understood now why the tablet had been hidden for so long. It wasn't just a relic. It was the key to the ultimate weapon. A weapon capable of reshaping the galaxy in a way that could never be undone. Determined to find out more, Dr. Vorn and Professor Larkin set out on a journey to the coordinates hidden within the tablet's shifting symbols. The journey would take them to the farthest reaches of the galaxy, to a forgotten world, lost to time and legend. The path was perilous, fraught with dangers that would test their resolve. But Dr. Vorn was resolute. She had come this far, and she would not turn back now. As they approached the coordinates, Dr. Vorn felt a sense of foreboding. The atmosphere on the planet was thick with an eerie silence, as if the world itself was holding its breath. The landscape was barren, covered in ash and dust, and the ruins of an ancient city lay scattered across the surface. It was a place that had long since been abandoned, but the air still carried the weight of a forgotten past. They made their way to the heart of the ruins, where they found a massive stone structure, its entrance guarded by towering statues. As Dr. Vorn and Professor Larkin entered, they were greeted by a strange dim light. The walls were lined with carvings that seemed to pulse with energy, and at the center of the room stood a pedestal, upon which rested a strange, glowing object. The object was unlike anything Dr. Vorn had ever seen. It was a sphere, encased in intricate metalwork, with strange symbols carved into its surface. It pulsed with a faint, ominous light, as though it was alive. This was it, the weapon that had been sealed away for centuries. As Dr. Vorn approached the sphere, she felt a surge of power emanating from it. It was as if the weapon was calling to her, drawing her in. But there was something else, a warning, deep within her mind, a voice telling her to turn away, to leave before it was too late. But it was already too late. The sphere reacted to her presence, the symbols on its surface shifting and changing in response to her touch. The power within it surged, and suddenly, the room was filled with a blinding light. When the light finally faded, Dr. Vorn found herself standing alone. The pedestal was empty, and the sphere had vanished. In its place was a holographic projection, showing a vision of the galaxy, one that was burning, torn apart by war and chaos. The weapon had not been created to bring peace, as many had believed. It had been created to destroy, to tear the galaxy apart, and bring an end to everything. And now it was free. The truth had been revealed, and with it, the realization that the galaxy was on the brink of destruction. The weapon was no longer a secret. It was out there, waiting for someone to wield it. The truth had been uncovered, but the consequences of that knowledge were more terrifying than anything Dr. Vorn could have ever imagined. The galaxy was no longer safe, and there was no turning back. For millennia, the galaxy had looked down upon humanity with a mixture of curiosity and disdain. The great alien civilizations of the universe, advanced in technology, philosophy, and warfare, had long since considered themselves the dominant force in the cosmos. They saw humans as a young, undeveloped species, barely scratching the surface of their potential. The idea of humans being anything more than an insignificant footnote in the vast history of the stars was laughable to many. But that was before the humans proved the galaxy wrong, before they demonstrated that their strength lay not in their technology, but in something far more dangerous: their will. It all began with the sudden and unexplained appearance of a human fleet, an armada of warships unlike any the galaxy had ever seen. The ships were sleek, their designs simple but efficient, brimming with technology that no one had thought possible for such a young race. The ships carried no formal insignia, no flags or banners to indicate their allegiance to any particular empire or federation. They simply arrived silently, without warning, and without explanation. It was this sudden appearance that caught the attention of the galaxy's most powerful factions, races that had long assumed they were the rulers of the galaxy. For months, no one knew where these ships had come from or who controlled them. No one had seen them before, and the technology they wielded was unlike anything anyone had ever encountered. There were rumors of a hidden human colony, one that had somehow developed in isolation from the rest of the universe, building its fleet in secret. The factions began to argue. Some believed it was a threat, others thought it was a misunderstanding, but no one could agree on what to do. The turning point came when the human fleet made its first strike. It wasn't an attack on any specific empire or race, but rather a calculated strike against a group of space pirates who had been terrorizing the galaxy for decades. These pirates, armed with stolen technology, had long evaded the justice of the galaxy's powers, causing fear and chaos throughout the Outer Rim worlds. When the human ships arrived at their hidden base, they unleashed a force that was both swift and brutal. Within hours, the pirates were completely destroyed, their hideouts burned to the ground, and their fleets shattered. No one had expected the humans to be so decisive, so ruthless, and so effective. The galaxy watched in stunned silence as the humans dismantled the pirates' operations with surgical precision. It wasn't just the attack that surprised everyone. It was how quickly and effectively it was carried out. The human fleet acted like a well-oiled machine, operating with an efficiency that many thought only the most advanced civilizations could achieve. No race in the galaxy had ever seen anything like it. The pirates, once the terror of the outer worlds, were gone in a single blow. The human fleet didn't stop there. They continued their campaign, moving from system to system, confronting other threats that had long gone unchallenged. They faced the notorious Voron slavers, known for their cruel treatment of prisoners, and wiped out their operations without hesitation. They struck at the heart of corrupt corporations that exploited planets for resources, leaving a trail of destruction in their wake. Each victory was swift, each enemy overwhelmed by the humans' relentless drive. The galaxy began to take notice. But it wasn't just the military might of the humans that was being noticed. It was their tenacity, their refusal to accept defeat, their ability to overcome impossible odds. In battle after battle, the human forces stood firm, never wavering, never retreating. Even when faced with overwhelming odds, the humans fought on with a determination that made their enemies tremble. It was this unyielding spirit that began to change how the galaxy viewed them. No longer were humans seen as a young, naive race. They had proven themselves to be fierce warriors, capable of taking on any challenge, and doing so with a resolve that was unmatched. The turning point came when the humans faced their greatest test yet, a battle with the Zinthar, a race of powerful warriors known for their ruthless efficiency in combat. The Zinthar had long been the undisputed champions of warfare in the galaxy, their legions of soldiers feared across the stars. When the humans' fleet encountered the Zinthar in a remote sector, no one believed they stood a chance. The Zinthar were considered unbeatable, their tactics flawless, their forces unmatched. Yet, against all odds, the humans did the unthinkable. They not only held their ground against the Zinthar, but they won. The battle was nothing short of legendary. For hours, the two sides clashed in a furious display of firepower, each side determined to emerge victorious. The Zinthar had the upper hand at first, their overwhelming numbers pushing the humans back. But then something unexpected happened. The humans, using tactics no one had anticipated, managed to turn the tide. They outmaneuvered the Zinthar, exploiting weaknesses in their formations, and slowly but surely they began to push the Zinthar forces back. It was a battle that defied logic, one that no one believed the humans could win. Yet, in the end, the Zinthar were forced to retreat, their once proud fleet scattered and broken. The victory sent shockwaves through the galaxy. The Zinthar, the seemingly invincible warriors of the stars, had been defeated by a race they had long dismissed as insignificant. The news spread like wildfire, and for the first time, the galaxy began to see humanity in a new light. No longer were they seen as a young species struggling to find their place in the cosmos. They were seen as equals. No, more than equals, as a force to be reckoned with. The humans had earned the respect of the galaxy, and it was a respect that would never again be taken lightly. In the months that followed, human diplomacy began to flourish. Once ignored by the larger galactic factions, humans now found their voice in the intergalactic councils. They negotiated treaties, brokered peace between warring factions, and worked tirelessly to bring stability to the outer worlds. Their reputation as fierce warriors was matched only by their ability to unite and heal the wounds of the galaxy. And slowly, the rest of the galaxy began to realize that humanity's true strength wasn't just in their military might. It was in their resilience, their unity, and their unwavering will to protect what they held dear. It wasn't long before other races began to seek alliances with the humans, not out of fear, but out of respect. The once dismissed humans had proven that they could achieve the impossible, and their place in the galaxy was no longer in question. They had earned their place, not through conquest, but through their sheer determination to protect their people and fight for what was right. As the years passed, the galaxy's perception of humanity continued to evolve. The once skeptical and dismissive empires now viewed humans as powerful allies, ones who could hold their own against the greatest threats the universe had to offer. But more importantly, they had come to respect the human spirit, the unbreakable will that refused to bend, no matter the odds. And so, in the quiet corridors of the Galactic Council chambers, in the bustling cities of distant planets, and in the hearts of all who had witnessed humanity's rise, one truth remained. The galaxy had learned to respect humanity, not for their strength alone, but for their courage, their will to fight, and their unwavering belief that no matter how dire the circumstances, they would never give up.